In the wink of an eye, Jesse Winker chose the perfect time for his first career Mets home run. It was a walk-off on Wednesday, and the second walk-off of the week as the Mets take 2 out of 3 over the Orioles, and boy, did they need it. What an electric finish to the 9-game homestand. We'll recap the homestand and look ahead to a huge 7-game stretch. 4 in San Diego, 3 in Arizona that could determine this Mets season. We'll do all that with my buddy GiraffeNeckMarc, Marc Luino, YouTuber and co-host of the Mets Up podcast. It's all coming up next on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic with Jake Brown.
And it's in there, strike three called. The Mets win the pennant. The New York Mets have won the National League pennant. Put it in the books. The New York Mets, for the first time in 15 years, are champions of the National League.
The sickest New York Mets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio, wherever you're on social media. And check me out on TikTok, Jake Brown Radio on TikTok. Been posting a lot of good TikTok content daily, multiple videos a day. And make sure, if you're not, subscribe on YouTube. Smash that thumbs up below, youtube.com/@thesickpodcast, Mets Magic, and follow us on X at SickPod Mets. And if you are a fan of nice clothing, make sure you check out Homage, HOMAGE. The description is in the bio. The clothes are extremely comfy. I got a shirt. I got a Mets hoodie. They have all different cool memorabilia there. So learn about Homage with the link right below in that YouTube description. And Howie Rose had a good description of Jesse Winker and the way he rounded the base pass. And I was there on Wednesday, and what a game it was. What an atmosphere it was. And it reminds you why we need October baseball in Queens. Unfortunately, if the Mets sneak in and lose in the wild card, it won't be in Queens. It'll be in where they're going next, and that's San Diego or Arizona, most likely. So you might get a little bit of a playoff preview on this West Coast trip if the Mets magic continues into September and they could overpass the Braves, who are now without Austin Riley, without Ronald Acuna and everyone else, Ozzie Albies, everyone that they've lost. Can they do it? Well, this was a team that looked like they can with some of the magic they prevailed with. 2 walk-off homers. I was there Monday. I was there Wednesday. And, it was an emotional week for me. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk about stuff hopefully in the coming weeks, but we'll see the next time I'm at Citi Field. I'm not sure when it will be, but for now, that was a grand finale on Wednesday. And, they did it over a team that's fighting for first place in the Baltimore Orioles. They did it despite some pathetic umpiring behind home plate, pathetic calls. Jose Budo getting pinched. I mean, that was strike 3. Could have been a strike him out, throw him out. Said it's a walk. They tie the game. And, Carlos Mendoza has not pushed all the right buttons this week. A lot of people hated the bunt. I didn't despise it with Jeff McNeil on Sunday because I'm a bunt guy, but he is one of your hotter hitters. It was a little intriguing, but I'm not going to hate on that like everyone else. Not pulling David Peterson, a guy who's not used to going 100-plus pitches, leaving him out there after the double. He gets the balk and then the home run, tie it on Monday, and then Francisco Alvarez saves them with that pimp job. 2 pimp jobs. The Mets from rally pimp to pimp imagery to pimp jobs. Next homestand, you might have Will Farrell and Boats and Hose throwing out the first pitch. You already had Hawk too. You might as well have Will Farrell and the Step Brothers go out there. But, he pushed the right button with Jesse Winker. He put Winker up there for Bader, and, that's not the obvious move. I know you're saying righty's in the game. You put up the left-hand hitter for Bader. It's not an obvious move. It was a smart move that worked, and if it, we probably would have said if he struck out, oh, why'd you do it? Well, he almost did. 0-2, works at a 3-2, crushed one at left center. He said, I love this shit, and we love this shit too, Jesse Winker. We love when you do something like that because we were waiting for that moment. A moment like this. I think that's Kelly Clarkson. We were waiting for that from Jesse Winker, and we got it. Good finish of the homestand. You lose 2 out of 3 of the A's, 1 and 2. You win 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, 3 and 3, and you win 2 out of 3. Make it a 5 and 4 homestand. Should have been better, but when you win like that, that's got to propel the boys. That's got to get them electrified. Got to get them fired up. Going to face a really good Padres team in San Diego. Speaking of Will Ferrell. A Padres team, they started losing some games. They haven't been as winning as much as they were, but 72 and 56, tied with the Diamondbacks. Massive 2 series coming up, and then the White Sox finish off the homestand. And the Mets return home to face the Red Sox. They go White Sox, Chicago, Red Sox, New York, coming on up. When the Mets got Jesse Winker, I was with our guest today who joins us now, and, we were hyped. We were excited. We were at the Diddy. We were fired up. We were like, they got Jesse Winker. And we're refreshing Twitter, refreshing the phone, waiting to figure out what the return was. And we're like, Tyler Stewart, who cares? They didn't give up, Acuna. They didn't give up Clifford. They didn't give up one of the big boys, one of the head honchos to get him. And I was with, of course, Marc Luino, who joins us now. GiraffeNeckMarc, at GiraffeNeckMarc. You subscribe to his YouTube. And he hosts the Met Stuff podcast. Remember how excited we were when they got Winker? And, while his average hasn't been terrible, and he hasn't been terrible, he hasn't had a moment. And then Wednesday we said, this is why me and Mark cheered our White Claws, whatever, White Claw with your high noon for that moment. And when he, throws his elbow pad on, when he throws the helmet, when he high fives the guys, when he clears home plate to make sure he doesn't pull an Alvarez and he actually touches home. All of that is why we were hyped, Mark, for the legend of Jesse Winker. And instead of waving goodbye to him, we waved thank you and hello. And we did our America's Next Top Model, and we did the slap of the butt, slap of whatever you want to slap whoever you don't like, slap your boss, slap whoever. They got slapped by Jesse Winker.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, that was awesome. Shout out to my dad texting me. He's like, how about Jesse Winker's Met moment right here? And boy, oh boy, was it his Met moment. I think everybody has been waiting for it. Like you said, he hasn't been terrible. He's been bad from the perspective of there's been no power. I think that was only his 3rd extra base hit with the Mets. But he's hitting 275. I'm not a huge batting average guy, but at the end of the day, he is putting the ball in play, was putting it in play well. So I knew he was going to turn around. I'm just so glad that was the moment he decided that he's going to really show up in Queens and make his Mets moment.
Yeah, and I like batting average because we didn't look at it with DJ Stewart. We just looked at his OBP and walks. And when you're hitting 5th in the lineup, I don't want to see you walk. I want to see extra base hits and homers and pimp jobs.
Yes.
And this is the Mets are pimping, big pimping. In the words of Hove, I was in the vicinity of Hove at Fanatics Fest over the weekend. Didn't get to meet him, but it was a pimp job. And, I think the team loves that. You could see they rally around him. They said it the other day. They said, when he was doing the hard extra slap, it pumped the guys up. So clearly that morale, that aura, the Mets have it. And I think that's why you and all Mets fans are like, just get in October because you just never know what can happen. Maybe you get Senga back. And even if you don't, say they get in and flop, they get swept. I still think it's a special thing for this team that didn't have many expectations, that was supposed to be around a 500 team, to find a way in with the moves that they made, with the criticism that Stearns has got for maybe not going all in what was a trade deadline where a lot of people like the Padres gave up the farm to get some guys. It would be a cool moment for, this to be that ultimate classic rain delay 2027 we watch back for a team that made the playoffs. Because listen, we know 2001 what happened. We know Brian Jordan's home run in Atlanta. Like, that was a fun season. They finished over 500, but they missed the playoffs. We know 2005, a team that was flirting around 500, a playoff contender, but didn't make it. But we want 2024 to be that team that does, because they've given us those moments 2 in 1 week, 2 to send me off to wherever I'm going, that were just truly special.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I know you said you were at the game Monday and Wednesday, which is it's a real shame now that you're not going to be able to go back, because it seems like you're bringing the luck. I was there Tuesday night, and I saw the absolute bloodbath that was that loss, especially with James McCann hitting that absolute bomb against Quintana. But
I knew he was going to hit. I knew McCann, when he played, was hitting one this week.
No, of course he was. That's what everybody does to the Mets, especially when you come here and you stink like James McCann did. For him to hit that 450-foot shot makes a lot of sense. But really, I mean, the vibes right now in Mets world are just so good. And this is a team that, like you said, thrives off the good vibes, thrives off the energy. when things are clicking like this team does feel, I'm going to use special in a different term, not special in the chance of like this is a World Series winning team, but special in a team that can make some noise, make the playoffs, and then you just kind of playing with house money at that point. You just roll the dice, have some fun. Lindor and Vientos are carrying this team right now in the top of the order. So if we can get some help from anybody else, they can really walk into San Diego and make this really, really interesting in the wild card.
Yeah, and you hope the Mets Thursday get a little help from you get Mets fans for Phillies this week.
Yeah,
the division pipe dream is out the window. It's all about the Braves and the wild card. So you want the Mets to get some help. They win. They can maybe by Thursday night be within a half game of that wild card again. And I think a lot of us were down, Mark, after the A series. You said, "How the heck do you?" Because the Angels and the West Coast, in my mind, that was all a crapshoot. The Angels series was the first series they lost in a month. Angels were playing a little bit better. That was like, all right, it happened. Let's move on. But the A series pissed us all off because it was ugly. The 11 walks. I was good luck the next series. That series, I was at that game that was 4 hours, 9 innings, 11 walks. It was a rough watch, Mark. And they needed to sweep the Marlins. They took 2 out of 3. You live with it. Sunday sucked. But it all changed when you beat a team that was in first place. When you beat an Orioles team who riled us all up with New York mess, the tweet that their admin and our admin cooked. Our admin did cook, and I believe Kayla, a buddy of mine, does some stuff with their social media. I'm not sure if her that was doing the tweeting on Wednesday, but they cooked, and it was a war, and that really just felt good and made up for what was a bad West Coast trip, what was 2 underwhelming series, because you knew you were going to win the series against the Marlins, but the way Sunday happened with first and second, no out, strikeout, not moving guys over, Lindor nearly hitting 1 out, Vientos striking out and a pitch way outside. Everything that happened Sunday was made up for this week, but it means nothing if they can't carry the momentum over. Like, the Padres are really good, and I think this series, Mark, has extra significance, not just because of the wild card, because of what they're doing, because of what they did at the trade deadline, what the Mets did. I think the Mets, we're going to look back and not really care about who the Mets gave up because they didn't give up a lot. The Padres might care who they gave up if they don't make a deep playoff run this year, maybe even next year when they get a rental like Tanner Scott. And now you're seeing the team that went all in, balls to the wall, and the team that went halfway, got a lot of decent pieces for not much. It's a battle of gave it all up versus gave some up this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just the difference, too, in the way the organizations are run. San Diego, for the last 5-6 years, has been pushing, doing anything they possibly can to be in the playoffs, get to the World Series. I think they've been to the NLCS twice. AJ Preller's incredibly aggressive, and his job's probably on the hot seat here. When you bring in and spend all this money, you got to have some success at some point. And while I think Mets fans would love to be in the same shoes that the Padres have been the last few years of making, deeper runs into the playoffs, they still have nothing to really show for it. I don't even think necessarily have a division. So for the Mets and the Padres in this series, it is a battle of a little bit two different organizational standpoints as well. David Stearns is very calculated. Everything that he does has not just effects currently, but what it's going to do for this franchise in the future. And I love the way that David Stearns runs this team. But this is definitely a huge series for both of these guys right now because of what you just said, the moves that were made. The Padres made the impact moves. The Mets made the moves to essentially stay afloat. And there's nothing wrong with either of those sides, but there's definitely a lot on the line for both teams here. And I think just the best part about this is, and we got a little bit of a glimpse with it in the Orioles series, but going to be even more now in San Diego and even in Arizona. These next 2 series, they're playoff series in August. You don't get that often in August, but because of the way the new schedule works, because of the way the new playoff works, we're now competing with these teams. And as much as I hate, how the schedule is at times, it is pretty awesome that on August 22nd, every single Mets and Padres fan is going to be locked in, hating each other, chirping each other, living and dying by every single pitch in this game. It's phenomenal.
I think it's safe to say a disaster here is a make or break seasonal situation, Mark. Yeah. Would you agree if the Mets say go 2-5? Because I'm not even looking at the White Sox here. Your hope is at the very least you take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. But if you go 2-5 season doomed, or is this like a 1-6, 0-7? Does 2-5? I mean, obviously it matters what the Braves do because part of the reason the Mets are still in it because the Braves has not been good. Like the Braves are helping them. The Mets went into this homestand half a game out. They left only 1.5 out, and it really could have been worse. When you talk about the game, losing to the A's, losing to the Marlins, like the fact they're only 1.5 out is somewhat of a miracle. We know all the injuries the Braves are dealing with, but what's the situation where this is that what's there, and is there a situation, Mark, a record on these 7 games that dooms the Mets season?
Yeah, I think if you win anything less than 2 games, all of a sudden you're no longer playing good quality baseball, and these are the Diamondbacks and Padres are playoff teams. Like, I don't think there's a world where we're really knocking them out of the playoff picture. I think it really is between us, the Braves, and the Giants right now for that final spot. The Diamondbacks and Padres are just better than all 3 of those teams listed. But in the same regard, like, yeah, you can't be worried about what the Braves are doing. You have to beat the team in front of you. You have an opportunity for the teams in front of you to directly impact their season and directly impact where you are on the standings in regards to them. You gotta win 3. I think at the worst, you gotta take 3 of the 7 games that you have here. But I'm not satisfied with that. I don't want 3 of 7. I want to see 5 of 7. I want to see 6 of 7. And I think the way the Mets are playing baseball right now, they're totally capable of doing so. It's just a matter of, are the bats going to stay hot? Is the starting pitching's been pretty good. What's the bullpen going to look like? That to me is the big thing when you've got these 7 games on the West Coast in 7 or 8 days. Like it's a lot of baseball, high intensity. I'm also really interested to see how Carlos Mendoza handles these games. Is he more, I don't want to say clinical or making harder decisions, but is he going to be able to pull the plug early on, guys? We've seen him use Reed Garrett a little bit longer than maybe he should. We've seen him use other pitchers in the past, maybe in situations I wouldn't, like Huáscar Brazoban. Is he going to be a little bit tighter with how he makes moves? This is going to be a really, really interesting 7 games, and especially these next 4 against the Padres.
And we saw a Jekyll and Hyde situation with Mendoza with the starters, where I felt like Peterson, he left in a little too long. And I'm usually for leaving, having trust in your guys. Although, listen, you had a pretty well-rested bullpen. You got the complete game shutout from Luis Severino, complete game, which you never see on Saturday. So the bullpen was pretty well-rested. And then the situation Wednesday, I thought he pulled Manaea too soon. He took him out after a slow roller. I would have left him in at least 1, maybe 2 or more batters, depending how many he got out. His pitch count was not high. He was still under 100 pitches. Sean Manaea, outside of 1 pitch to Slater, was absolutely fantastic. I mean, you talk about a hit by pitch, a home run, and an infield roller. That's it. That's why I thought he pulled the plug too soon. But listen, Mark, they didn't get luck with the home plate ump. I mean, that is clearly a strike 3. O'Hearn got mad, and rightfully so, but it's also like, we just got screwed on a call. You lose your right to get mad and thrown out of a game in that situation. But it's been a little Jekyll and Hyde. 1 decision bad, 1 decision good. What did you think? Because I'm a big bunt guy. What do you think of the Jeff McNeil bunt Sunday?
Hated it so much. I hate the idea of giving up outs when you're losing. Playing for 1 run to tie is a major loser mentality. You have first and second, nobody out. Jeff McNeil's been one of our best hitters since the All-Star break. Like, there's nothing around. I don't care what his full season numbers say. Since the All-Star break, the dude had an OPS above 1,000 at the point. Bunting there is just a major loser move. That being said, the bunt was called. Jeff McNeil has to get it down. There is no excuse for not getting it down. I think both sides can be right, but I wish in the end he didn't, because people also bring up the fact that, like, oh, Lindor, that fly ball would have drove in the run. They're not pitching to Francisco Lindor the same way they did first and second if they second and third. They're probably even walking Francisco Lindor to give Mark Vientos up, who is a double play candidate. So to me, I mean, there was no right decision technically, because it went wrong both ways. But I think giving up an out when you are losing in a game that has a very specific amount of outs that are in the game until it ends, I think it's a terrible decision. And I know this is like a classic new school, old school baseball fight.
Yeah, I'm on the fence because I am the king of the bunt. You can put on a shirt, put my face on a bat. I love a bunt. And Jeff McNeil's a guy, Mark, Jeff is a guy that's had really nice bunt singles before, which is why it blows my mind where, like, how can he not lay it down? Like, if there's a certain guys in a spot, I look at Lindor, Nimmo, and McNeil as 3 guys in the Mets lineup that are capable of laying down a decent bunt. Maybe Harrison Bader too, but like, those are guys who I've seen do it, and done it successfully. I mean, I don't know how many Jeff McNeil bunt singles he had in his career, but he's had a lot of good drag bunts where he ends up on first base. And that's the situation. Obviously, you just want to move the guys over, but maybe get lucky and get the base loaded and no one out. But, alas, hindsight's 2020, and he was one of the hotter hitters. So your hope is that he drives one maybe in the gap, and the Mets end up winning the ball game. So I do agree, one-run game, you got two guys on, you kind of want to put yourself in a chance where you could win the game there. Also, Mike Sarbaugh deserves some criticism as well, the Mets third base coach. Sending Mark Vientos from second, and I know it's a weird play because the center fielder is down, and maybe he didn't see that he flipped it up, and he thought he was hurt, and that would have been an easy run. Mark Vientos is not fast.
No,
he does not have wheels. I mean, there's Pete Alonso, and then there's Mark Vientos in terms of slowest Mets, which is weird because Vientos has the build of a guy you think would be a little faster. I think he's athletic, lean, but he's not fast. I thought that was a hideous decision. And then Alonso going to third. I don't know if that was on him or it was on Alonso. Did you see? But he was out by 8 miles.
Yeah, that had to be a Pete thing because, just from a baseball guy perspective, you would never send him the plays in front of you. You see everything going on. There's absolutely no reason. So I think that had to be a Pete trying to do a little bit too much. Pete's a little golden retriever. He sees a chance for him to make a big play. He's going to try to make a big play, and it usually fails in tremendous fashion. Pete's at his best when he's cool, calm, and relaxed, not when he's trying to make big plays and get everybody excited. So, yeah, that was a pretty horrible play. I don't think that's on Sarbaugh there, as the Vientos one definitely was. I kind of like the aggression there just because it was a pretty insane play. It did take perfect relay throw to get out the slowest runner maybe in baseball that I've ever seen. But, yeah, I don't know. The decision-making has been a little bit shaky as we've gotten down the stretch. I also think it might have been shaky all year. It's just now these games theoretically matter more than they did, so we're going to look at them under a microscope a little bit more. Overall, I have been pretty impressed with Carlos Mendoza in his first year as a manager. I don't think he's been given an easy task by any means with this team, and the way that they were so down and they're so back up right now, I think he needs a lot of credit for that, along with just the leadership of Francisco Lindor and Nimmo and all those guys. But we got to clean it up a little bit here. We can't be making these mistakes as these games get more and more important.
Yeah, I feel like in the majority of my seasons as a Mets fan, this is the least I've tweeted complaining about a manager. A guy I texted yesterday, Terry Collins, was a guy I complained about a lot.
Yeah.
Terry, I love you, bro. You made a lot of in-game boneheaded decisions that I was not the biggest fan of. Now you defended your players to your death. The players played their asses off for you. But in-game, he made some decisions. I'm like, Terry, are you okay, man? So I have not done a lot of that with Carlos Mendoza. And when it's like an umpire. When you're not talking about the manager a lot, they're doing a good job. When you're not talking about the umpire, they're doing a good job. So if we're not tweeting ever about a manager, they're not doing a bad job. So overall, he's been done good. And I think you're right. I think we're watching these games, with every eye open. We're not missing a pitch, and we're locked in because if the Mets want to make the playoffs, it's going to take more than the rotation being good. It's going to take more than the bullpen being locked down. It's going to take more than clutch heads. It's going to take every right button pushed. It is a dogfight to the end. And if you're a Mets fan, you're hoping that final series in Atlanta before the final series of the season matters. Because if that series matters, it means you're in a position to take a wild card spot. If that series doesn't matter, the season's over. So if you can go into that series and win that series, it sets you up for a magical final weekend. And that's going to take the coaching staff, and not just Mendoza. It's going to take Sarbaugh doing things right. There's been some questionable sends. Like we said, there's questionable pulling guys out, maybe some questionable pinch hitting opportunities. Yeah. Yesterday, he pushed the right button with Jesse Winker, and man, was he doing. And that was cool to see. Do the Mets have a Jose Quintana problem? That's the other thing. When we talk about the rotation, against Oakland, it was really one pitch that killed him, the grand slam. But still, that's 4 runs. And then 7 runs the other night. I mean, they're out of the game. They've 5 on a lot of days is enough to win you a game. It was enough, Wednesday. But you can't have a situation where your starting pitcher puts you out of the game. And that's the other thing with this series coming up with San Diego going for it. The Mets didn't really go for it in starting pitching. Blackburn, outside of facing his old team, Oakland, has actually been phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
So that's worked for now. We'll see in September and against some better teams if that works. But Blackburn's been good, but they didn't go all in on that rotation. And the issue is with Senga out. We don't know Christian Scott. I haven't heard any update. I don't know if he's back. He's jumping on the guys on home plate. Hopefully he's not hurting his UCL, hurting his arm. But he was one of the first guys out to celebrate, I think, either Wednesday or on Monday for Alvarez. So he's out there with the team. I think that's great. But like Brandon Sproat's not lighting it up in AAA just yet. I don't know if he's going to be ready or if they rush him up and maybe give him a try. Do they love Budo so much out of the bullpen? I don't think we're seeing Budo. What do you do here? You keep trying out Quintana? Do you give him one more start in San Diego Sunday and then go from there? Or do you get Sproat up here? Or what do you do?
Yeah, with Quintana, it's difficult because he did have a stretch where he was pitching really well for us. And I think a lot of times with a guy like Jose Quintana, someone who I wasn't particularly excited the Mets ever brought in, it's really easy to get on this guy because he is probably one of the weaker pitchers in this entire pitching staff. This last start was weird. The Orioles are one of the best offensive teams in baseball. Like, there's no doubt about it. And if you went to a couple of the games, you see the way they hit the ball. They just hit the ball differently than the Mets do. And the Mets have a lot of good hitters. We have one of the best offenses too. But the Orioles noticeably are better at the plate. And Quintana went away from his curveball. He threw it about 20% of the time against the Orioles. In his start against the A's, he threw it 25% of the time. I think against the Mariners in that start too, he was throwing it close to 30-40% of the time. That's the pitch that he really relies on. He doesn't have anything else that's particularly good. And when he's not catching the corners, when he's not stealing those strikes, he just becomes hittable. And that's the entire point of the argument ever with pitching people or people in baseball when they talk about why it's so important those guys throw 99 miles an hour, why it's so important to have that stuff is because when those guys aren't on, they still have the ability to just be better than you on sheer talent and raw ability. Where a guy like Jose Quintana, if things are not going 100% right for him, he's going to get shelled. There's no way around it. You can't hide a 91 mile an hour fastball. You can't hide a mediocre changeup. You can't hide this stuff. So for Quintana, it's not the fact that I don't think it's a Quintana problem. This is just a problem with that kind of caliber pitcher. Like Sean Manaea has been incredible. His stuff has gotten better since coming to the Mets. Jose Quintana just doesn't have that front line quality starter repertoire. He doesn't have the ability to shut you down even when he doesn't have his best. Because even when he's on his best, he doesn't really shut you down. So I don't know what they're going to do. I thought Budo was maybe going to be a guy that they were going to look to stretch out a little bit more, but I think he's just simply way too valuable in this bullpen. He continues to get big outs every single time he's on the mound. He's amazing. I love Jose Budo. And maybe Daniel Nunez coming back, you start to stretch Budo out a little bit more. You start to play this difficult game, and I don't necessarily know what the Mets should or can do. Sproat's not ready. I don't think he's ready. I think we were getting excited. I don't think he's going to get called up in September. That would be insanely aggressive. And if he do, it's going to be in the bullpen. This is just kind of the rotation we're riding with for now. Maybe you give Tyler McGill one more look. I don't know if we can do that game again. The ex-girlfriend's texting you, are you up? That's what's happening right now. But I don't know. It's tough. Quintana, I think it's just one of those where the offense is going to have to pick him up. We're going to have to play great defense behind him, and we're going to have to go fingers crossed we score more runs.
Yeah, and fingers are always crossed when Tyler McGill's on the mound, and I feel bad tweeting bad things about him because his mom follows me on Twitter, and I met her on the field. The mom's the family, nice family. You hate to, I mean, you have relationships with players, stuff. You hate to rip the person, but he's just been so wildly inconsistent that him and Quintana, it's like the same thing. And I agree, more curveball. I mean, that curveball is filthy. When you go from 90, 91 to 78 curve, it's a hard pitch to hit. Brandon Sproat last night got absolutely rocked. 5 innings, 6 runs, 9 hits. And the most alarming thing, 0 strikeouts over 5 innings. I mean, you don't see that in baseball history. Like, even Blackburn strikes out 4 guys. Like, 0 Ks in 5 innings in AAA is alarming. His start before, 3 innings, 2 Ks. He got ejected. And his first start, 6 runs, 7 hits, 4 Ks. So 3 starts, not pretty for Brandon Sproat. So essentially, you'd be forcing him down our throats. I agree. I think Nunez comes back. It's the time. And, it's hurt them because if you had Nunez and the guy who, a lot of people keep forgetting, the reliever with the best ERA in the Mets bullpen has been out a long time. That's Sean Reed-Foley. And he's a guy his rehab is now on pause. Something is up with him. They are not ready to see him back. I don't know if he's having shoulders, what the problem is. But if you were to have Reed-Foley and Nunez back in the fold, it's a no-brainer. As good as Budo's been, stretch him out because I'd rather see 5 innings of Budo and 1 run than, fingers crossed with Jose Quintana for 5 innings. So we'll see if the Nunez is joining, barring him getting paused or a setback, should be with the team this weekend. I think their goal is to have him in San Diego as an arm. And Nunez was another lockdown guy, another guy that when he came off the mound, like Jose Budo, was tweeting about his performance. Budo, a couple weeks ago, someone called him. He was tweeting mid-game. They go right to their phones. It's unbelievable. Alvarez, it almost seemed like before he even showered, he was reposting to his Instagram story. I'm like, bro, you're stuck with yellow Gatorade all over yourself. Take a shower before reposting all our stories. But that's the era that we live in. But, I'd like to see Budo stretched out because, Quintana will get the start Sunday. That's undeniable. He will pitch in San Diego. But I think that if he gets rocked, that's a swan song. I think the Mets have to in a playoff push. They can't give up once every 5 days. And that's what hurts really about losing Senga is like you had that one day every 5 days. There was a strong chance you're winning that game. And David Peterson has been day 2 of you're winning that game with the way he's pitched if he gets enough run support. David Peterson's 7-1 with a 3 ERA mark. I think a lot of people don't appreciate what he's done coming off hip surgery, how remarkable he's been. And I know he doesn't go that deep into games, but he has 2 starts this entire year where he's given up to more than 2 runs. He's never imploded once. The most he gave up was 4. He's been unbelievable this year, and his ERA is only 3 because he only goes 5 innings most starts or 6. But man, what a season Peterson is having in a year where they lose Christian Scott, in a year where Senga they've only got 5 innings out of. He's been an unsung hero. We talk about all the heroes, Lindor, Bader, everyone else. He's been a hero on this team.
Yeah, don't say it too loud. I feel like whenever we start talking too well about David Peterson, it happens. So keep it down. But really, he has been great. 11-3, the Mets are when he's on the mound this year. They win games, and he's done a really good job, like you said, of late. I think since July, he basically has had 1 appearance where he hasn't gone 5 innings. And I know that sounds crazy because people are like, well, what about 6? I mean, he's had like 4 or 5 starts since July that he's gone 6+ innings. He went 7 in his last. He's been really good. And this is a guy who's going to be a part of this rotation for the future. He's going to be cheap. He's going to give you an opportunity to win every 5 days. He's not an ace. I think we have Mets fans have stopped that now because he was a first-round pick. I think everybody's over the David Peterson could be the future number 1, number 2 of this rotation. But this is a guy who every 5 days has stepped out on the mound and has given us an opportunity to win. And that's exactly what this team has needed. He's been phenomenal. What Jeremy Hefner has been able to do with a lot of the pitchers this year, I think, again, tip your cap, give him a standing O, whatever it is. Being able to turn Peterson and Manaea around this year has been just unbelievable.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I think he is a divisive name, Jeremy Hefner.
Shouldn't be.
I think there's a half of the Mets fan base I think would disagree with you and say that Jeremy Hefner has hurt some of the pitchers. I'm 50-50 on him. I think, if they don't make I think there's a chance maybe Stearns because Hefner wasn't a Stearns guy. Maybe they move on from him. You seem to be in the boat of give Jeremy Hefner a lifetime extension.
If David Stearns moves on from Jeremy Hefner, I will lose a lot of faith in what's going on in David Stearns' head. Jeremy Hefner is one of the best pitching minds right now in baseball, and having spoke to players like last year and just guys like Trevor May, even this past season, everybody has glowing reviews of Jeremy Hefner. I mean, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, those guys love Jeremy Hefner, and those are some of the best pitchers of all time. He's not going anywhere. The guy, if anybody has beef with Hefner, like I think probably the bullpen would be the place where people say that. Here, earth to everybody, the Mets bullpen just doesn't really have that many good arms. Like these guys, you can't polish a turd and make it a diamond. Like at times, it's just not going to happen. Like Huáscar Brazoban is just not very good. Never was very good. He's a reliever that was free that we traded from minor league for literally nobody, Wilfredo Lara or whatever his name is. The guys that like what I see with Manaea, what I see with Peterson, what you saw with Senga. I mean, Senga came over and is a completely different pitcher than he was in Japan. He became one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. Luis Severino. This is going to be a destination where in free agency the next few seasons, because of Jeremy Hefner, you're going to be able to pick off guys like Manaea and Severino again because they're going to see these guys are going to hit free agency. They're going to get paid. This was a place where you can come, pitch, be healthy, improve your game, and then go make your money. Walker Buehler is like a guy next year that's probably looking at the Mets going, man, I'd love to go there and pitch for them for a season under Jeremy Hefner. He's not going anywhere. He's done a phenomenal job this year. The walks aren't really his fault at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's what people point to, the walks. I mostly agree. I mean, listen, Manaea, I think is a guy that you cannot lose. I think he is a tremendous guy in the clubhouse. Seems like he wants to be here. You're worried about he cut his hair. Is he going to be the same pitcher? He cut his hair. He's been fantastic. And he's got great style. You know, I talked to him at the Hank Azaria, Jeff McNeil event. He had the coolest jacket I've ever seen. I forgot where he told me he got it, but he didn't say Shine. I don't think it was
Men's
Shine.
Warehouse.
It might have been. It was an electric, like blazer / jacket. Like it was like a raincoat, but for pimps. Like it was a pimp. Well, it makes sense. The Mets are the 2024 pimp Mets. You had the Rally Dildo TJ Rivera Mets. Now you got the pimpin' Mets. So I think they got to keep an eye. Severino is going to be interesting. Like you said, he's going to get paid. Will he replicate this performance? You know, he was on the show that I produced with Joel Sherman and John Heyman this week and talked about how he changed a lot of his habits this offseason, how he saw a sleep doctor. I think I need one of those that helped him sleep. He said he wasn't sleeping well. He would watch a lot of TV and look at screens before sleep, and it affected everything. And he's just changed health, his mental, you know, the sleep, it's simple things sometimes that it takes. Not drinking coffee at this time, you know, this, that. And he's changed a lot where he is just smooth. He's on the money. He figured out, you know, how to not tip pitches, which he was doing in the past. So, you know, a lot of that's maybe Jeremy Hefner and his coaching staff too, but that's going to be an interesting name. I think Manaea, you got to keep. Severino, will he be just too expensive to give a long-term deal? But, you know, David Peterson, we looked in the realm of McGill and Peterson of two inconsistent guys. Like, I don't trust either of them. Now one's here and one's here. Like, Peterson's here. You trust him as like your number 4 in the rotation next year. McGill's a guy you're either looking to trade or he's in AAA next year. That's the difference. Is McGill has his moments. He's got more pitches than anyone. He's got like 7 pitches. Yeah. He just hasn't thrown them effectively. And he can't, you know, deeper in the games, you don't trust him. Where David Peterson's a guy, deeper in games, you didn't trust him. Now you're starting to trust him. So the rotation is going to be intriguing, but that's something we'll talk about down the road because this team is in the middle of a playoff push and it begins in San Diego. And, you know, Francisco Lindor said to ESPN, I'm proud to be a New York Met. My job is not done. I haven't done what it takes to win. We haven't won the World Series, so I don't want to say I've done my job to the ultimate end. I feel like not until the day we win when I have the opportunity to give the trophy to Steve or Alex Cohen and say we did it, the job is not done. And then since we're in New York, nobody's going to care in the next year, so we got to go out and do it again. I mean, somebody this offseason needs the press conference that Jalen Brunson had recently for the New York Knicks. Put the C on his chest. And I've said last week, Francisco Lindor is the captain. Pete Alonso, I would not bring back. He's not a captain. If you could get him on a decent deal, fine. If not, I'm looking at Christian Walker. I'm looking at a Chapman, maybe moving Vientos over. Whatever you got to do. I don't think Pete Alonso is a mix in the future for this team. But Francisco Lindor's here a long time. And Lindor, again, you know, it almost seems like daily is a new milestone. Became the first shortstop in MLB history to have 3 seasons of 25 homers, 25 stolen bases. And it's August 22nd, Mark.
Yep.
Like, there's a good chance. I mean, he's going, you know, knock on wood, they say he's healthy, is going to have 30 homers, 30 steals, maybe even more. He's been a godsend. And this was everyone looked at a trade. Oh, the Guardians got the better end. They got Jimenez. The Mets got the better end. They got their shortstop. They got their leader, put the C in his chest. He's here for the long haul. Some of these other guys like Alonso should not be.
Yeah, I mean, me and James have been talking about on the Messed Up podcast. We've been, you know, hyping up Francisco Lindor since the day we got him. We're like, you guys don't understand. This is a Hall of Fame shortstop. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play the position. There's not many guys that have ever been like Francisco Lindor in the history of baseball at the shortstop position. And now I think Mets fans are finally starting to appreciate it. You start to see that he's stepping up in all the big moments. He's getting all the big hits. He's at the top of the order, which has been a godsend for this team, putting him at the top of the order, getting him the most at-bats. He's been getting on base. He's playing stellar defense. He's now doing all the right things, acting like a leader. I'm so happy that this dude's going to be here for the next, 7, 8 years, whatever's left on his contract through 2031, 7 seasons. This guy's going to go into the Hall of Fame wearing a New York Mets hat as one of the greatest players to ever play for this franchise. And we're just so lucky that he's a part of this team. And the way that he's been playing and how big he's been down the stretch for this team, the dude's going to finish close to the top of the MVP voting. And if the Mets make the playoffs and he has a hot September, don't be surprised if he gets a couple first place votes.
Yeah, it's nice to have a Hall of Famer in a Mets uniform. We've had Hall of Famers go in other uniforms. It's going to be nice to be at that ceremony. I was at the Mike Piazza ceremony, got emotional. You know, David Wright was our hero, but just couldn't do it long enough and couldn't stay healthy. Now we'll have one of our own. And, you know, there's the talk of underpaid, overpaid. He underpaid. I think he's just paid right. I think he has the
Fine.
exact
Yeah.
contract. I know some of it's a joke of, he's severely underpaid. I think the contract is perfect. 30 plus million.
Yeah.
That is a good number for a shortstop. The overpaid talk is out. You can't, if you say that, you're like canceled now. You can't say that. Underpaid, if that's what you think, that's fine. But I think he's paid just the right amount for what he is doing. Pete Alonso. In my mind, I offer him 2 for $50. I'm not giving him 9 figures. And I said this last week, maybe 3 for $70. I would not give him like 4 for $125. I just think there's better options. I just think his inability this year to hit in the clutch has really doomed this. He has had numerous times to have a big hit in the clutch. Guys on either double play, strikeout, whatever it is. Like you said, Lindor has been clutch where Alonso has not been. It's still down the road. I don't want, you give me 30 seconds on it, but is there an offer you're giving Pete Alonso? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I still give an offer to Pete Alonso. I think they probably come back with the same type of offer they rumored to give him during spring training. I think that Joel Sherman broke randomly on MLB Network casually one day. I don't remember what the number was, but it basically came out to like $22 or $23 million a year for I think 7 or 8 years, whatever it was.
I wouldn't give him 7 or 8. That is a long-term commitment for me.
It's for sure long, but at the end of the day, like I don't think the Mets are going to back down. I think that's going to be their best offer. This is what you get if you want to get paid as much money as physically possible for as long as possible. Here's our offer. Don't forget
7 for $158. Sorry to interrupt. That was the reported offer.
Maybe a little much, probably a little much. I also don't care. Not my money. We have the richest owner in sports. Who gives a shit to me, in my opinion? The length is the thing that I'd be worried about because he might age like milk. But at the same time, his agent is Scott Boras. His agent's going to try to get him as much money as possible. Don't be surprised if they do lean towards one of the deals that you just mentioned, like they did with Blake Snell, like they did with Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger this past offseason, because that's actually kind of more the realm where Pete Alonso falls in terms of the first baseman in Major League Baseball in that same tier of you're not one of the best. You're not one of the top 5, top 4 first basemen in the league. You're not going to get paid like that, but you think you should. And you have numbers that will make you think that you're the best. So you're going to think that you deserve that money. A 1 or 2 year deal, I think, would be best for both sides because I do think Pete is just having a rough year. I know the whole conversation about he's not clutch. Clutch, relatively speaking, like is kind of nonsense. If you look at Pete Alonso for his career, he has an 830 OPS in high leverage situations. This year, there's no doubt he has not been clutch. Like I won't deny that one bit. His high leverage numbers are terrible, but overall for his career, he's been great. I mean, even if you look at his splits by inning, in the 9th inning, he has an OPS at 1,000. That is the highest of any inning that Pete Alonso has ever played in. So the conversation of clutch this year, yes, not clutch at all. Need him to step up. Really need him to get hot here if the Mets want an opportunity to make any sort of noise. Like, wow, how great would it be if Pete Alonso got hot down the stretch? And now we have the decision of, oh, shit, should we pay him all this money? I'd love to be in that problem. I hope it happens. But I also think us as Mets fans are being a little hard on him right now.
I think this is a gut check month for him. He could change my mind with a big September to carry the Mets to the playoffs because this is where heroes are made. This is where legends are made. And Pete Alonso can make himself a legend because so far he's been the home run derby guy and a guy that hits a lot of homers, but the Mets haven't won anything with him. They made the wild card round. And I'm not saying that's on him. It's obviously the team, but like if he's going to be this leader and the polar bear and the all-star, and he's going to talk about being on pace for 40, and I made the all-star team this, and I did this, and I want to see you, YOU, do something in crunch time.
That's fair.
It's gut check time for Pete Alonso. And then if he gets the big deal because he had a great month, great. The other guys out there, and again, this stuff talk down the road. It's Goldschmidt, Josh Bell, Christian Walker. I personally like Christian Walker. I know he's 33, but if you get 2 years of Christian Walker, I would rather that. I know he's had some injury problems this year too.
I genuinely think it's going to be that guy over at third base, Mark Vientos, moves to first base because he's
defensively that's going to scare us. But
his bat is amazing, like such a good hitter. Didn't see this coming, especially what we saw the past couple seasons, but he's changed what his approach has been. Shout out to Carlos Beltran for fixing this guy. Seems like he really got into his head during spring training and when he didn't make the call up and he turned his season around completely. But at third base, he's atrocious. He's a butcher over there. He's terrible. His home is going to be first base at some point, especially if the Mets don't have Pete Alonso. And then you can look on the free agent market. Maybe you give Ronnie Mauricio a shot to win the third base spot coming out of spring training. This is so far down the line, but I think, especially the way David Stearns operates, The contract they offered Alonso will be the best offer that they give him. They will look to do short-term stuff with him if he's interested. And if not, I think Mark Vientos will probably be our first baseman, or, like you said, a Christian Walker on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, would love me a little Christian Walker. All right.
As well.
Yeah, and Josh Bell's not terrible on a 1-year deal.
I don't want Josh Bell. No.
For a year, I wouldn't hate him on one year. Reese Hoskins as an opt-out. I don't think we ever see him in New York.
I can't root for that guy.
Goldschmidt on a 1-year deal. I wouldn't
He's dead.
hate.
Get him out of here. He's dead. He's so old.
For a year, I don't know. I agree. I think Vientos, although I see Mark Vientos dropping a lot of scoops at first base. Alonso, we got to give him credit. He scoops almost everything.
Pretty elite.
At first base. He's been a much better defender, but gut check time for Alonso. And it begins in San Diego. Stay classy, San Diego. All right, prediction for this homestand. It starts with Luis Severino versus Dylan Cease, a really good pitching matchup tonight on Thursday, August 22nd. Friday, it'll be Musgrove versus Blackburn, another decent pitching matchup. Saturday, another night game, three late night ones. Peterson versus Michael King, another good matchup. King is having a really good season. And then it's Sunday, finally, afternoon, Perez versus Quintana before Monday off day. And then the series in Arizona. Again, Daniel Nunez, we expect back any day now. Starling Marte has been back and is doing a good job, stealing some bases, providing a bit of a spark to the lineup, gives the Mets some options. 7 games before my next episode of Mets Magic prediction.
Ooh, man, I don't know how I'm feeling. I really actually do think the Mets are going to take care of business in one of these series. I think they will win one of them for sure, whether it's the 3 here in San Diego or 2 in Arizona. I'm going to be really boring because nobody's saying it. Everybody is putting so much pressure on these series of the Mets can either push themselves into the playoffs or they're going to get knocked out. I think the Mets just go 4-3 and they probably stay exactly where they are in the standings, not move at all. It's a really boring answer, but nobody's talking about the fact that can just happen. Nothing can matter in these series, and it can be the exact same way we came in as we leave.
Yeah, I'll go with 4-3 as well. I'll say they went 2 out of 3 in Arizona and they split in San Diego. The Padres are just so good, and that bullpen is so locked down. Good pitching. They got to face 2 of their best. So I'll say 4-3. The Braves, if you're watching, Phillies Thursday, then the Nationals, unfortunately, for 3. So they're probably going to win that series. And then the Twins, they play for 3, and then 4 against the Phillies. So, by Labor Day, we'll have a good idea. Mets in it? Are they not? They get the extra roster spot. Who gets the call up? Or is it 2 spots? You get a hitter and a pitcher, right?
Hitter, pitcher, yeah.
Okay, so we'll see what pitcher comes up, what hitter. What happens is Adam Ottavino still a Met in September. The question we almost ask ourselves every week. I mean, you thought if Nunez and Reed Foley are back, you think Otto's gone, but Ottavino's still sticking around. He's still finding a way. He is that veteran. So, I don't hate the guy. I just think he's been frustrating to watch as a pitcher this season. Man, big trip. Let's get it, Mark. Let's go 5-2. 5-2 would be electric.
It'd be amazing.
That would be, I just want them to ride high and say because the pimp job Alvarez did was unbelievably amazing. Being that place was rock, and then Wednesday to cap it off against a really good team they beat. Like the vibes are high right now. That a series loss to San Diego, and it's like this roller coaster. It goes right back down to the bottom, and you're getting off the ride. I want to stay on this ride, and this 7-game trip wants us to go up. We back up. Meme on the scoreboard. Like, we want to be back up. He is GiraffeNeckMarc at GiraffeNeckMarc on YouTube. Subscribe there. And the Mets Dub podcast with our good friend, the king of the Brooklyn Mirage. I always say that. He never really goes there. He just went there once. He just lives in Brooklyn, so I just call him the king of Brooklyn Mirage. But we love James Shiano, and one of the best sets of hair of anyone we know. He's, as someone who does not have good hair, I appreciate good hair. And we got the U.S. Open too coming up, so expect no home games during this. They line it up nicely where there won't be the crazy traffic with 2 events going on at once. But Mark, I'll see you around. Thanks for coming on Mets Magic.
Thanks for having me on. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. Until next time, we'll be back after the 7-game West Coast trip. Let's go 5-2. Shock the world. Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Subscribe, smash a thumbs up, comment Sick Pod Mets on Twitter, Jake Brown Radio, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that. Let's go Mets. See you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube. Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.